I'm going to call this meeting to order then, please, for the board meeting for today, Tuesday, September the 22nd, 2020. Thank you all for being here either virtually or in person. And hopefully we can manage both very well as we work through today. So I'll ask Vice Chair Morris if he would lead us in an invocation, please.
As soon as I find it.
Okay, no problem. I'll give you 30 seconds to find it.
It's like me last week. You have it memorized, Brian. Come on.
Here it is.
May we who are assembled here have a true understanding of the duties that are placed in our hands. We seek to have the wisdom to honor our obligations to the good of the residents of Renfrew County, to the parents, teachers, electors, and especially the students. May those who teach be ever inspired by goodness, and may the wisdom and knowledge which they impart to our students ever serve as a beacon to lighten their way. As trustees and administrators, we will work together with integrity, perseverance, and respect to the fulfillment of the trust bestowed upon us.
Thank you very much, Trustee Morris. I don't believe we have any regrets today. It's nice to see a full table, including Trustee Edge, of course, who's joined us virtually. And a special welcome to Trustee Birch. This is, I guess, her second board meeting now. Thank you. And it's, again, great to see both of our student trustees here with us as well. So thank you for joining us. I will just bring your attention to the agenda. We do have an amendment to the agenda under number 6 under presentations. We are going to postpone that until the next board meeting. And so I would like to amend the agenda to remove that, please. And I would need a motion and a mover and a seconder to confirm the agenda.
Make a comment.
Certainly. Trustee Shields is making a comment.
Yeah, now that we have an Indigenous trustee, should we have an acknowledgement of the traditional lands to start our meeting?
I think that's something that we should certainly have a conversation about, Trustee Shields. And I know we had, a couple of us had talked about that briefly before, and we certainly want to look at that as an option, something to do, and we would certainly work with Trustee Birch to do that. That be okay, Trustee Birch? Okay, thank you. We will do that in the future for sure. Okay, and if I could get a mover and a seconder to look at, to approve our amended agenda. Trustee Shields, seconded by Trustee Boland. Thank you. All in favor of the amended agenda? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest based on the agenda items today? Seeing none. We'll carry on. Approval of the minutes of the August the 25th meeting, as well as our special board meeting on September the 3rd. Could I have a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes? Trustee Gannett. And a seconder. Oh, sorry, Trustee Boland. And are there any comments or questions around the minutes of those two meetings? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving those minutes of those two meetings? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Trustee Edge. I saw you just come up briefly there. Okay, so committee reports to the board. We have 3 items on our agenda today. The first one is a debrief report regarding school and system reopening for the fall of 2020. So I would turn it over to Director Buffoni to provide us an update on what's happening or what has happened as school has reopened this year.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to the Board of Trustees. The following report provides a debrief regarding school and system reopening following the ministry mandated closure period of March 23rd through to June 30th. As a result, of course, of the current global pandemic we're facing, the report really builds on the school reopening working groups deliberations over the summer months, continues to enhance and evolve the utilization of technology and programming that's innovative for student engagement, while maintaining healthy and safety practices in our schools and central departments. As announced by the provincial government on Monday, the 29th of June, the ministerial order for school closures was lifted effective Wednesday, July 1st, 2020. Shortly thereafter, senior staff approved the return of custodial staff to schools and central sites in order to attend regular duties. Through the summer months, senior staff met on a regular basis, at least twice weekly as an executive council in order to contingency plan. And I'll simply highlight a few of the key elements with respect to the contingency planning that took place over the summer months. In particular, implications related to the ministry's guideline to reopening schools, and you'll see that as attachment A to the Board of Trustees. That document has evolved over time, and it's a snapshot, but it is the one that we preliminarily worked from, most importantly, to plan for 3 modes of learning. In addition, we prepared our own return to school and work guide, and I really want to thank Communications Manager John Latteroot for all of his efforts, as well as his comms team in putting that document together. And last but not least, in the context of that work over the summer, really, most importantly, a confirmation of attendance survey released publicly on Friday, the 14th of August. And you'll see in attachment C, attachment B's got the outline to our resource guide. Attachment C are the results of that survey in a preliminary form. That was a snapshot in time, and I'll make some commentary on that in a moment's time. But you'll see broken down by school site the response of our parents and guardians with respect to interest in in-person learning at school or online learning at home, really referred to commonly as remote synchronous learning. In addition, I would like to extend a special thanks here to Superintendent Cousineau, to Principal Rakowski, and to Vice Principal Blimke for their tremendous efforts that continue to this day in the launch of our virtual classes that's associated with the startup for the current school year. As was the case with the Pandemic Management Committee, the constant interplay between the interim working group, Executive Council, and of course all of our community partners, including public health, most recently as a real contributor, as Superintendent McIntyre said, really a group that we've been working with for the past 6 months, really in an in-depth way, but for a long time as a community partner, very important. Through its bi-weekly meetings, senior staff addressed a number of operational matters related to the reopening. Important points that are shared with respect to this are adjustments to the contingency plan that actually took place in the final week of August and first week of September to accommodate a number of parents and guardians who in essence changed their minds. They had put something in the survey, but when the date of actual operationalization, going live, so to speak, they began to realize either they couldn't make it work or there would have been a last-minute change. We did our very best to accommodate those changes with a fairly equal number choosing the alternative. A small, modest peak in the number going to in-person learning at school, but there was an interplay back and forth with some of our school community members. In addition, the provision of technological equipment, and a huge thanks here to Superintendent Block and Manager Fevig, who mobilized an additional 193 Chromebooks and 44 MiFi requests based on that selection of the virtual learning at home from our parents and guardians. The coordination of virtual classes for over 1,300 students, with each student remaining connected to their home school for additional supports, including special education resource support, that kind of thing. A reach out by school administrators to students and their parents and guardians who were attendees last school year, but for whom no communication, survey or other, had been received to date. So we did ask our school administrators, despite the incredible busyness of their days, to reach out to individuals that they had not heard from for the purposes of connection, very important. And then, of course, transition support for students with complex special needs and mental health concerns during the last week of August and into September, as well as supports regarding programming for 310 students with IEPs into the virtual remote synchronous learning setting. Last but not least, continued development and flexibility around supports for students working remotely who may require special services such as ABA, speech and language, vision, hearing, etc. And ABA being a particular intervention for students with autism level of support. Wanted to note a few final points and then to open it up for questions that the Board of Trustees may have. Approximately 127 students were enrolled in homeschooling this school year. 94 of those are new, 33 were existing, and this is a twofold increase in the number of homeschooled students for the current school year, and that's visible in attachment D, and that's not uncommon when we're looking across not only the region, but provincially and nationally, that there's been an uptake in students homeschooled and parents and guardians registering for homeschooling. Now, that's not the virtual remote learning online, that's actual homeschooling. There's also approximately 233 students who have returned for a 5th year of secondary schooling. I know this was a query raised by the Board of Trustees some time ago. So we have that number, and that's approximately what we see each fall anyway. So that number has not spiked up higher or gone lower than we would have in other cases. Of importance, the final date for schools to accept the change in modes of delivery, in person or online, was set for Tuesday, September 15th. So prior to that, if a parent or guardian changed their minds and essentially sent their kids to school, we accepted them right into our classes without question. We did forewarn parents a little before that date that we would eventually have to lock it down for the purposes of staffing, and that was the date that was selected, which gave an additional week's time once school had started for those parents and guardians again who changed their minds either way. Important note to mention, it also allowed us to ensure the stabilization of our class configurations and staffing for the first quadmester or first part of the school year. Any additional requests for a change in mode of delivery beyond this set date is being handled at the supervisory officer level on a case-by-case basis. See the situation, adjust and accommodate to the best of our ability, and I'm very pleased and grateful to say we haven't had an overwhelming change in that. With the exception of Fellows High School, but we've been able to shift the school community online, as mentioned, which has decreased the desire to change from in-person into the virtual setting. We've not gone virtual with those families. We've simply gone to an online mode. So I did want to make that point clear to the Board of Trustees. This next part is probably the toughest decision we're going to face in the next little while strategically. As an essential next step, senior staff will review the established timelines for quarterly decision-making points for parents and guardians in order to ensure the smoothest possible transition between quadmesters, especially at the secondary level, but also at the elementary level, and minimize the potential for disruption to students in classes and staff in assignments. It is important to emphasize, however, that the provision of choice for parents and guardians will inevitably create change in classes and assignments throughout the school year. The reason this is a difficult decision for senior staff and something that we'll bring forward as a regular update to the Board of Trustees is that when we provide that choice element, we're going to go through the same thing. We're going to reach out to parents and guardians who are going to fill in a survey. That survey will likely not be complete. We'll have to reach out to additional parents and guardians for their choice. We'll have to understand that regardless of the next decision point date, that leading up to it, there'll be some last minute changes and that there'll be some trickle effect afterwards. And so the decision before senior staff that's of essentially a challenge for our consideration is quite how much disruption do we accept, honor, accommodate, allow once the school year is underway. It is conceivable right now that we will settle into this first quadmester, and as soon as that happens, we start to signal out to parents the decision-making point for the next quadmester, which doesn't feel like a tremendous amount of reprieve for our entire staff. Our teaching staff, our educational assistants, early childhood educators, our principals and vice principals, senior staff, and we need to weigh in the balance the value-added aspect of that. And so part of what senior staff will be doing over the next couple of weeks is determining exactly how we approach that opportunity because choice is a key element that the provincial government has asked us to provide. And whether or not we could adapt our thinking on that and not so much have it open free choice of a change entirely, but simply to be in a mode of addressing some of the requests to make a change. It's just something we need to consider. It's something we need to weigh so that we're not in a perpetual state of instability for the entire balance of the school year, again, for our students and our staff, because those decisions, especially on a large scale, play both ways. It not only impacts the person who's decided to make a change, it also impacts the person who decided to stay the same. But because of the change made by others, they might be forced to do a change. So conceivably, for a given student named Jane, who has Mrs. Smith and wants to carry on in school, that student may not actually end up with Mrs. Smith in the next quadrimester if enough other students in the class pick something different. It's just one example of the complexities of this, that even if people have chosen the same, they may get a change. So that's part of the decision making before us as a senior staff. Again, thank you to the entire senior staff for their tremendous efforts in really leading us through this first part. And to the Board of Trustees for all your support. I'll open it up for questions for myself or members of the team. Now, thank you, Madam Chair.
Questions? Yes, Trustee Adam.
Second question.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll turn it over to Superintendent Barnes for any comments, or Superintendent McIntyre for an exact number beyond. I'm sorry. The question is from Trustee Adam, whether there's been a change in enrollment. So I'll turn it over to both Superintendent McIntyre or Superintendent Barnes for any update of current information, but I don't have that right on hand.
That is a great question, and I'm sure with the booming housing market in Renfrew County, there's lots of other people who are wondering the exact same thing. Our practice is to make use of October 31st and March 31st numbers, and so all our schools and our IT team are tabulating all of those numbers. They're not always available right at October 31st because there's quite a few checks and balances to put in, but we will certainly have those numbers for you then.
Yeah.
Yes? Sure, go ahead.
Marjorie, can you get your mic?
Yeah, the issue of homeschooling, which has doubled, you say, in our board. I know the school board has some responsibilities in this regard. Would you please outline those for the group of here?
Sure. Through you, Madam Chair, the question from Trustee Adam is with respect to the board's responsibilities around homeschooling. So in essence, Trustee Adam, the homeschooling process, there's a procedure in place for homeschooling built off a provincial directive and guideline on that front. Parents and guardians who choose to homeschool their children fill out a form that essentially designates them in that capacity in essentially the education of their children. That is different from the parents and guardians who might have chosen virtual learning this school year. The numbers on balance in Eastern Ontario for homeschooling have been relatively low because public education is such a strong cornerstone of society. There really are a few numbers, and they're usually unique contexts philosophically or contexts logistically that really work out for a family in that way. The the comment I'd like to make with respect to the uptick right now in homeschooling, which I think, much like the real estate comment that Superintendent McIntyre made in the county, is I think COVID dependent here. I think in the absence of a pandemic, we may not have seen a large increase in those numbers. And what I'll commit to do on behalf of staff is to double back with those parents and guardians where this was a new context. Those 94 new could be parents who would have come to us anyway around homeschooling. No question, and we're not placing any value judgment on that. But when we're in a more stable place and space with respect to a global pandemic, we'll return back to those approximately 100 parents to re-offer that return to the school setting if they truly selected homeschooling solely out of concerns around the pandemic itself. So I see those different as I do the existing ones who were homeschoolers, so to speak, previous to that, and may take the opportunity to reach out to all of them anyway, but in particular those 100 students where this is clearly related to the context we're currently in.
Sure, go ahead. So,
Through you, Madam Chair, Trustee Adams is quite right. There is a regular monitoring piece that's conducted by an individual within the school board that reaches out. There's also the ability when schools and school boards do that for homeschoolers to connect them to special events and activities that take place in schools. It doesn't exclude a homeschooler from everything that the school board does. Clearly, the day-to-day pieces would not be a part of that kind of interaction, but there have been examples where the school has been able to offer homeschooling parents and guardians some suggestions, some resources to help in the homeschooling context, because that student ultimately does remain under the purview of the district. So not sure if that answers the specific question, but resources often can be provided. A connection, for instance, one of the things that the Regional Homeschooling Association often gets involved in is enrichment programs for students with Ottawa University, for instance. Those homeschooled students can also access that like the public school students can. So that's a couple of examples of the kinds of resources that boards can put in play.
Thank you. I was looking.
thank you very much for that explanation. Trustee Kaiser, I believe you had a question.
So I have my microphone on. Hopefully I can be heard. I want to make sure I sort of phrase this properly. So I brought this up at one of the previous meetings, and I guess I find myself concerned that we would tell a parent you cannot send your child to school. And I know it was a great outline of the issues we face and putting other students out if we have to allow other students in, but I think that, I go back to saying I would even support spending money out of reserves if we had to accommodate parents who want to bring their kids back to school. And I think, to me, that's a fundamental principle of what we do. We want kids in our schools. And when we go to make those decisions as administration, I think that I would be very appreciative if you take into consideration the parents and the students as much as you possibly can to make it work in the system that we have and the challenges we have within the system. Because again, to me, it's inconceivable that we would tell a parent, no, we don't want your kid in school. We're not going to allow them into our school. And I realize it's not as simple as that, but I just think that that's something that we have to be very, very, I think, understanding of when a parent wants to send their kid back to school, whatever the reasons are. So it's not really a question. Unfortunately, I can't figure a way to put it into a question, but it's just an ask to make sure that we take that into consideration when we're looking at this, and whether we give a drop dead date each quarter or every couple of weeks, whatever it is. And if we have to come back to the board and ask for resources to make it work, I would rather do that than tell a parent, no, I'm sorry, your kids have to be homeschooled, or they have to go to the Catholic school, or they have to go somewhere else. So just a consideration and kind of a follow-up to the request I had at a couple of board meetings ago. Thanks.
Director Buffoni?
I think Trustee Kaiser raises a great point. First, as 2 points of clarification. One, we would be very hard pressed in public education to deny any parent or guardian access to our schools for the purposes of their children, and that wouldn't be our intent anyway. Second important point is the notion of a date for final decision making was our best attempt for the system as a whole to forewarn parents that the free flow of in and out for the first quarter would eventually be settled in. What that allows us to do is to actually handle the one-offs case by case, and we are doing our best to accommodate those anyway. What we can't have on September 16th, if we've called that September 15th date, is large numbers going back and forth because it will destabilize the staffing. So by forewarning the parents of that date, having understood that they really selected in August, but we're accommodating over a number of weeks the change of mind, it allows most of the public to understand, okay, I got to make a decision by X date. And with most of the public doing that, it then allows us to actually accommodate the individual cases. If we were to have left it open and we just got a few individual cases, we'd have no problem anyway. We'd accommodate them. The problem would have been is if large numbers were switching back and forth. And part of the reason that's so critical for us right now is because the context can change on a dime. An outbreak in any area of this province, this county, a given school can switch the perspective of parents. And so the date was less about actually excluding and more about trying to get the entire county as a system into a train of thought so we could manage the individual ones. So I agree wholeheartedly. I'll just say a long-winded explanation, Trustee Kaiser, to say yes to the comment. I don't know the question. It's something wanting to answer yes and not no. To all of the above, we're going to accommodate those. We don't want to lose a student, and we don't want any parent or guardian feeling they couldn't have us as a choice.
The response is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Buffoni, and it was a good question for sure. I think it's been a question on lots of our minds too, Trustee Kaiser. So thank you for that. Trustee Shields, you had a question?
Yeah, I'd like some further clarification on the homeschool aspect. You said 93 students are homeschooled. Are they tied to our board like they are 93 public board students, or so many Catholic board or French or something like that?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm going to ask Superintendent Kuzno, who's also in the building but is going to join us as the 16th person here in the room who handles our homeschooling file, to just pop up, because I think a little bit of clarification from Superintendent Kuzno. But my understanding of those 127 and those 94 new ones, they're all parents and guardians who have either requested the form or in our schools and have now essentially gone to a homeschooling environment. So they were students either with us, or some of them could be parents and guardians who their children are now coming to school age and they have decided to register with our board because in the homeschooling protocol, you need to be affiliated to some school district. Back to Trustee Adams' point, because the district does still hold you in their purview and can provide resources, opportunities, that kind of thing. I know Superintendent Kuzno is just joining on the very end with us. He'll be able to give a little bit more detail on some of the specifics, but in essence, they're our kids.
Further,
Sure, go ahead, Trustee Shields, and then we'll come back to Superintendent Kuzno.
Thanks. Yeah. So my question was about the homeschooling, and do we have an obligation to support them with textbooks and electronics? And is there any staff support that they require? And then the other part of it is, are we subsidized? Are they part of our enrollment? And does the government give us money for those students?
When we do get, there is a formal process. To the planning of program and how they will meet the curricular expectations, as well as if they are in grades where there are provincial assessments, they need to ensure that they respond to those requirements. Those students are on a separate registry. So they are not on our board registry, and we do not get funding for them. We can provide some guidance, but we do not provide textbooks and other resources per se. And as Director Buffoni indicated, the numbers have increased this year and continue to increase. We are currently at 145 homeschool students.
Okay. Any other questions for Superintendent Cousineau? And perhaps you're going to remain with us now, I'm not sure, but.
Yeah, hold on for a little bit.
Yeah. There might be more questions. Yes, Trustee Gannett.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Mike, could you turn your microphone on, please?
Things like that. To my knowledge, there is some sort of a framework or a plan that still exists. My question, I assume that there still is.
Yeah, we do have a policy in place.
Superintendent Cousineau, would you mind repeating the question, because I don't think people could hear Mike's volume was not up
So
exactly.
thank you. The question from Trustee Gannett was whether we had a structure in place, a policy to follow. So the answer is yes, we have an administrative policy. Certainly, if the numbers continue to increase the way they have this year, we may have to review how we support those families. Quite rightly, as you point out, currently the requests for homeschooling come into the superintendent's offices. They are reviewed to make sure that there is an academic plan, and then a confirmation letter is sent to those parents.
I don't know what the statistics are. That number of homeschooling this year seems very, very high. Could be just a special circumstance this year. But before COVID, like last year and the year before, would they be half that, less than half that? I mean, I have no idea. That seems like a really thing.
Yep. So just to make sure everyone understood, the question was relative to the previous years. In comparison to last year, we had 64 requests for homeschooling, and that was for the entire year. So we are currently in the third week of September, and we have far surpassed this. So this is certainly something, and we are not the only district that is monitoring those requests, because those are students right now that are not registered for in-person learning or are remote synchronous learning.
Thank you, Superintendent Cousineau, and thank you for the question as well, Trustee Gannett. Anything else from anybody on this particular topic of our back to school? That's where we started, right? Was our back to school planning, and any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Thank you very much for that update. And I think most of us had kind of caught up as we went along, but it's certainly nice to have it all put together in one spot. And amazing amount of work has gone into getting this school up and running this year. That's for sure. This school year up and running, I should say. So thank you to you, Director Buffoni, and the senior team, and all the principals and administrators as well as staff for all of their hard work. Okay, on to our next item then, our Special Education Advisory Council open session report, and I'll call on Trustee Gannett to provide that, please. I hope that your mic will be working, Trustee Gannett.
I've got it, so it looks like it's working, but if you don't hear me.
We're just checking on Trustee Gannett's microphone on his computer to make sure it's working.
It doesn't even appear that Trustee Gannett is even in the meeting on Google Meet.
Oh, maybe he's left the meeting. It doesn't look like he's signed in.
I would just suggest whoever's sitting next to Trustee Gannett, maybe they could turn their mic on just for the interest of time. Oh, perfect. There, John's got it.
Yeah, John was
So
looking after it.
Mike, just turn on your mic there, Trustee Gannett, and you should be ready to go.
Sorry about that. Anyway, the CF report, trustee report from Wednesday, September 16th, as follows. Regrets were given for Superintendent Poirier and Trustee Morris. They weren't able to attend the meeting. I'm sure that Superintendent Poirier was very busy with the fellow situation, and Mr. Morris had to reschedule a meeting. So we started off the meeting with Principal of Special Services, Bill Smith, giving us an overview of what's happening in our special education department. He really stressed that the priorities of staffing and scheduling took up exorbitant amounts of time, and it was constantly shifting. He explained it quite thoroughly, but in a nutshell, what he really meant was, you've got a certain percentage of students, let's say 20%, that are doing virtual, and the other 80% in schools. He gave us some statistics, roughly 200 IEP students in elementary and 130 IEP students in secondary have been closely connected with his team. He also went on to say that he's got one new member to his team. Margot Ingram is the new Vice Principal of Special Services. Other than that, his team has stayed intact. He spoke very highly of the work that they've done in trying to connect with families, connect with students. He also mentioned that special ed support classes online have been given one section for both elementary and secondary. He also mentioned that the virtual schooling is linked back to their home school. He allowed some of his consultants to briefly give us updates, such as Cheryl Barber, how the special ed staff are connecting with home and school. There's certs in our board that are doing that, sharing IEPs, coordinating with teachers, reporting. She also went on to say that our educational support personnel continue with their group meetings to discuss best practices. And they found that since the beginning of COVID, that's been a real lifeline. Allison McDougall continued to talk about the tech support for remote and in-class learning. One of our stakeholders, Tina Williams, who belongs to the community living, she's the executive director. She commented that she's passing the torch to a new person, Lee Costello. She's the new rep for SEAC, as Tina's now the full-time executive director for community living. So we welcomed Lee Costello to our SEAC committee. Tina also went on to say a couple of things that community living is doing, and that is they're having a drive-in on Wednesday, the 23rd at 7 o'clock. Movie Raiders of the Lost Ark, fundraiser golf day, just trying to keep things connected, keep things going. We discussed briefly the, which was just in the midst of happening, the closure of Fellows High School and the goings on there. We just
Thank you, Trustee Gannett. Unfortunately, Trustee Gannett's computer, I think, died partway through. So I know the last little bit of his report, some of you may not have heard. I know that Trustee Gannett is putting forward a motion to receive this report. And if I could have a seconder, please, to do that. Trustee Adam, thank you. Are there any questions or comments for Trustee Gannett before we move forward on this item? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting the receipt of this report? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. On to our next item. I would call on Vice Chair Brian Morris to bring forward the committee of the whole closed session report, and then after that, we'll ask him to do the committee of the whole open session report.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The Committee of the Whole of the Renfrew County District School Board met on September 22nd, 2020, and discussed the following items in closed session. 1, Audit Committee meeting of September 16th, 2020, closed session report. 2, proposed collective bargaining agreement between Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario, ETFO, Renfrew County Educational Support Personnel, ESP, local and district. And 3, update on school operations related to pandemic management. The following recommendations were made. 1, Audit Committee meeting of September 16th, 2020, closed session report. 2019-2020 annual report on internal audit activities that the Renfrew County District School Board Audit Committee receives for information, the 2019-2020 internal audit activities update report. And 2020-21 regional internal audit plan that the Renfrew County District School Board Audit Committee approved the 2020-2021 internal audit plan as presented. And second, proposed collective bargaining agreement between Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario, EDFO, and Renfrew County Educational and Support Personnel, ESP, local and district, that the Renfrew County District School Board of Trustees ratify the memorandum of settlement regarding the 2019-2022 collective agreement between the Renfrew County District School Board and the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario, Renfrew County Educational Support Personnel, local. I move that the board adopts this report.
Thank you, Vice Chair Morris. Do I have a seconder for this report? Trustee Boland, thank you. Is there any discussion, questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting this motion? And that's carried. Thank you. And if I could ask Vice Chair Morris then to present the Committee of the Whole open session report, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The Committee of the Whole of Renfrew County District School Board met on September 22nd, 2020 and discussed the following items in open session. 1, Audit Committee meeting of September 16th, 2020, open session report. And 2, year-to-date financial status for 2019-2020. The following recommendations were made. Audit Committee meeting of September 16, 2020, open session report, 2019-2020 annual report on internal audit activities that the Renfrew County District School Board Audit Committee received for information the 2019-2020 internal audit activities update report and 2020-2021 regional internal audit plan that the Renfrew County District School Board Audit Committee approved the 2020-2021 internal audit plan as presented. I move that the board adopts this report.
Thank you, Vice Chair Morris. I need a seconder for this report, Trustee Kaiser. Any questions or comments on the open session report from Committee of the Whole? Seeing none, all in favor of approving this motion? And that's passed. Thank you very much. I'm assuming, Trustee Edge, that you agreed with that. I didn't see you raise your hand, but that's okay. Oh, certainly. Trustee Kaiser.
If I may, something that I've seen as a trend lately, and I go back to Trustee Gannett's report. It's nice to get a full report. I mean, and Trustee Shields would agree that many years ago, just reading the report and going on, it's really nice to know what actually goes on and the highlighted points. And I just wanted to, I think I meant to comment on that in the meetings I've forgotten, but it is nice to get a feel for what's actually going on in the meetings that we don't ourselves attend as trustees. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Kaiser. Good comment. Good reminder for all of us, too, that we do want to share that extra information as we can. On to our updates then, and I'll call on Director Buffoni for his director's report, please.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, as this remarkable school year is now well underway, I'd like to acknowledge a number of extraordinary efforts of our students, our staff, and our school communities as related to the unique start of this fall. First of all, I want to comment that I spent the first week of school traveling to a school a day, and the comments I'm sharing really are what I saw with my own eyes, heard with my own ears with respect to all the efforts made by our school communities, including a well-planned process for the drop-off and pickup of students at Valor JK to 12 school, including the coordination of the release of students and staff alphabetically by last name, and an organized line for parents and guardians outside of the site at the end of the school day. In addition, I saw a very clearly established flow for traffic with signage for directions well advertised at Pineview Public School so that both students and staff could move through the site with ease, respecting physical distancing parameters. the thoughtful optimization of teaching and learning spaces on site at Renfrew Collegiate Institute in the staggered entry of secondary students during the first few days of school, including the orientation of grade 9 students new to the site itself. And finally, the effective and efficient use of cafeteria services and all outdoor spaces of the property for both the grab and go of food at lunch as well as the entire lunch period for Fellows High School. In each of the school visits noted above, I really did admire and witness firsthand students so respectfully following the directions provided, staff so professionally guiding their classes, as well as parents and guardians so patiently attending to the rules and routines outlined, despite the case of our outbreak at one of our sites. For this, I'm tremendously grateful to all of our stakeholders. Although our plan for reentry continues to adapt and evolve over time, our success in leading and managing the reopening of our schools and central sites will rely unquestionably on the ability of our entire school communities and system to work together. The launch of the RCDSB virtual classes for the fall, in order to accommodate that approximately 14 to 15% who chose remote synchronous learning at home for the current school year. Classes and courses have been established at both the elementary and secondary levels, respectively. My sincerest thanks to Superintendent Kuzno, to Principal Rikoski, and Vice Principal Blimke for their care and commitment in the setup of this complex system-wide virtual teaching and learning space. Of note, parents and guardians will be provided with that quarterly decision-making point to confirm or change the mode of delivery of public education for their children. The first 3 days of school were a provincial activity day grouping of dates. The three first days of the school year, the themes and topics that were covered included health and safety protocols, of course, anti-racism and equity, the new mathematics curriculum, as well as an overview of the district's inspired learning resource. Staff were also provided with much needed time each day to organize their classes and classrooms for the start of the school year, especially considering that staff had left their classes and classrooms so unexpectedly on Friday, March 13th, 2020, as a result of the ministerial order for school closures. Smile Cookie Campaign. As part of Tim Hortons' annual Smile Cookie Campaign to benefit local charities, 100 cookies were ordered for central staff at the board office in Mary Street on Friday, September 18th. All proceeds of the $1 sale of each cookie have gone directly to the Renfrew County Child Poverty Action Network, CPAN. A final note of appreciation to our custodial staff. A special note of thanks goes out to the entire custodial staff led by Superintendent of Corporate Services, Jen Barnes, and Manager of Facilities, Bill Murray, for their incredible dedication and diligence in preparing our school sites for the start of the current school year. Your work in making our schools great places to learn is so greatly appreciated, so thank you. And as a very final note, congratulations, really not so much hot off the press, but very much happening as of yesterday to Rebecca Conroy at Valor JK-12 School and Lionel Kingston at Madawaska Valley District High School for their appointment as interim vice principals, while Principal Rikoski and Vice Principal Blimke are in that virtual learning environment, and they assumed responsibilities yesterday. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Director Buffoni. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the director's report? Okay. Thank you. Very good comprehensive overview of key items that happened that first week of school, right? Certainly been an interesting beginning, no question about that. I did not have a formal chair's report. As you could see, there was nothing in your package, but I did want to just share briefly, verbally, to let you know about a conference call that was hosted last Saturday, which I thought was really quite interesting, in that the minister did call and ask to speak, have a conference call with Director Buffoni, with Dr. Cushman. Deputy Minister Naylor was there as well as myself. So it was a very interesting kind of half-hour, 40-minute call. And my sense was they were really wanting to learn and hear how things were going, what went well, what could be done better from their perspective. And I guess there were two things. The key thing for me and I think for Director Buffoni is that the communications, although we know it's challenging because the information changes, the communications really have gone well. And I mentioned the fact that I am not aware of any trustees that have been called with any issues from a parent about the pandemic. Now, I know we may have had interactions in the grocery store or the bank, but I have not had any direct calls from any parent upset about anything to do with that. Busing perhaps, but not but not the pandemic side, which I thought was interesting, and in my mind speaks well to the fact that communications from the board, from the health unit, from the principals is solid and is we're doing as well as we can. I know there are sometimes mixed messages, but that was the key piece for me. And then the flip side of that was what was the issue, and the main issue was just the results. The speed of getting results is the key issue, and certainly the minister and everybody around that table acknowledged that that's something that has to be improved. And I know they continue to work on how to improve that. It would be nice to finally get a test that you can get a result in 45 seconds, but that's kind of not going to happen for a little while. But I did want to let you know that I really felt that the minister was listening, and it was interesting that he pulled together that call on a Saturday afternoon. Trustee Shields.
Was our MPP, John Yafabowski, on that call also?
Yes, I apologize. I did miss that fact that Mr. Yakubowski was on the call. He did agree that he had not had any calls from upset parents either about pandemic related issues, and he commented often that he does get calls about busing, as we do, but he didn't have any calls either. Did you have anything else you wanted to add on that? But he was there. Okay. And with that, I will turn it over to our student trustees, Trustee Yarborough and Trustee Abbott.
All right, thank you. So the first topic on our update for today is the Student Senate group chat. So Jasmine and I have been messaging different schools and their presidents to start connecting in a more central group chat. And since the meetings will be online this year, we're hoping to use the group chat more than we have in the past few years. So Jasmine and I have also talked about giving our Senate more tasks and having more connection with the entire student body. So an example of this would be monthly reports. They'd be informal ones about any issues that students are having or different ideas the student councils have come up with. We also have the dates for the online meetings, so we'll be releasing those in the online group chat. And with that, I'll pass it on to student trustee Abbott.
Our second update is about our Student Senate Instagram. So Hudson and I had this idea of starting an Instagram for our Student Senate. This would give students across RCDSB the chance to see what the Student Senate was, and to encourage people to join Student Senate, understand the role of student trustee, and to encourage people to reach out to their Student Senate members. We'd also like to involve our Student Senate in Instagram by providing us updates on their school events and posts. We will also be using this account to give students the chance to learn about what initiatives are going on and to spread information about what's happening with their school boards. So with approval from Hannah, we started the account. Right now it's just a basic setup with no posts, but we plan to start posting later this week. So far over these 2 weeks, without any promotions, we have reached 239 followers, which we don't know how that happened, but people are already following the account, which we're happy about. Once we start promoting and posting, we are certain that the amount of followers will grow a lot more.
So we're also hoping to have different challenges posted on the Instagram page, more for like entertainment. So like dance challenges, singing challenges, video competitions, and the like, so students can participate in those. And we're also hoping to have like teachers participate in some of them, so that students from each school can rally behind their teacher. And so the teachers can kind of make fools of themselves online, and all the students can have a laugh at it and kind of just make it a more fun page, make it rather informal in some points, and then other points have updates. And back again to student trustee Abbott.
All right, and our third update is about the OSTA Executive Council. The Executive Council has been working on several items since our term started on August 1st. First, we just released the board membership package, which we have been working on updating. This includes new letters from the Board of Directors and Executive Council, more established information about updates about the state of our conferences. Next, we have been planning this year's big project. Last year, the Executive Council worked on releasing an equity survey. Now that we have all the information, we had a team work on data analysis so that we can move forward. The document will be released into 3 mini releases throughout the year, each being about race and inclusive curriculum, special education, and gender and sexuality. Our team has been working great together so far, and we will have our first in-person meeting in October, hopefully.
And that concludes our update. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. It sounds like you've had a busy couple of weeks already, just getting underway, and lots of great ideas. You'll have to make sure we know your Instagram account so we can all follow it as well. Any questions or comments for our student trustees? It's great to have sort of some normalcy going on. It's lovely to hear that. So appreciate your comments, that's for sure, on that particular item. Okay, I think with that, I don't know if Trustee Shields, any comment about OPSPA? We usually have OPSPA update on our agenda. I'm not sure if you wanted to say a few words.
Yeah, the OPSA Board of Directors and AGM is this weekend. The Board of Directors at Friday and Saturday morning, and the executive, or the AGM, where we vote on various issues that boards bring forward. Plus, there'll be a new executive. Anybody wants to watch this, it's on YouTube on Saturday at 1 o'clock.
Good, thank you very much. And Trustee Shields, you've been acclaimed again as the Eastern Regional Chair. So congratulations to you on that. And we'll look forward to the OPSPA meeting this weekend for sure. So it'll certainly be different having it online, totally online, but we'll survive, I'm quite sure. Okay, thank you for that. Is there any other business or comments that we've missed out on before we do a quick wrap up? Yes, Trustee Kaiser.
So, no graduations this year. I know typically one of the traditions that I do at all graduations is at the beginning of the graduation, I ask for everyone to join me in a round of applause to honor the graduates. So hopefully this is appropriate. I'd like to ask our trustees to join me in a round of applause for our administration for where they've taken us to this point through the COVID-19 situation.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Trustee Kaiser. More than well deserved, that is for sure. I'm not sure that we would have, well, we know how much work and how many hours and days and nights has been spent this last while, and certainly Director Buffoni has said he's full of media. I think for a bit of time he's been pretty famous across the country. So hopefully
that should do it.
That'll do it for a while, right? So thank you very much. Just two other quick things before we do adjourn. I did want to just remind people that the PIC meeting, in case you're interested, is on Monday, September the 28th at 6 o'clock. It is a virtual meeting. And Trustee Morris, yes. And who else is there for the PIC meeting? Trustee Kaiser? For PIC? Monday at 6. Okay, but I believe you two are on that committee, right?
Yes,
okay, I just wanted to make sure. So thank you for that. And Orange Shirt Day, which I know many of us like to acknowledge, that is designated to commemorate the children who survived the residential school experience, remember those who did not, and to honor the healing journey for those families and commit to the ongoing process of reconciliation. So Orange Shirt Day is next Wednesday, September the 30th. So keep that in mind as well. And with that, I would make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a seconder? Trustee Gannett, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much and have a great rest of the day.